Katie Lemons, Lori McCollum,
Jeff Osnell,
Tammy Coble,
Andre Peak.
Bill Kobe.
Olivia Oxendine, Denise Watts.
Excellent. And let me just introduce our agenda, and then once I introduce the agenda, I will introduce our guests who are going to participate in the agenda. We sent the pre-reads and the agenda out on our webpage, so all the commissioners and all interested parties, both in the room here today and also who might be listening to the live stream, can certainly access the materials through the ASRC link within the DOA website. So if you would turn your attention to the agenda at this point. Our agenda for today is going to be a call to order, which we did in the roll call, and then we'll then go into, after I introduce our speakers, approval of the minutes. We'll have 3 presentations today. Session 1 will be the ELA Standards presentation QA with Dr. Sandra Stotsky. Next we'll have, well actually I think we flipped the order. Did we flip the order?
That's fine.
Okay.
Keep the order, yeah. I think Sandy is now willing to go first.
Okay.
I've got my
And then we'll
papers
have
out
that
for
followed with
organized.
Dr. James Milgram to present the math standards presentation Q&A. That will then be followed by a break. And then Dr. Kevin Hertz will then present the considerations for effective standards-based teaching and learning. And then we're also going to have a slight change to the agenda where we will have a bit of a roundtable discussion with our presenters that will give us an opportunity to ask questions of the presenters in a more of a free-form format so that we can see the linkages between the topics that they will present and be able to flow our questions through in that way. Then we'll have, we'll then move to the math and ELA work streams. Did I just cover that?
no,
Okay, then we'll go through our math and ELA work streams and standardized process for revisions to those work streams, which is a document that Tammy gave us in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. I forget the title of that in the documentation, but it's an Excel spreadsheet. Then we'll open up for we'll move to old business. In the old business, we'll go through some of the discussions that we had in the last couple sessions as it relates to the testing task force update that Olivia is going to complete covering for us that she started last time. And then we'll have an update on the integrated math survey that we discussed last time. The need for us to look at specifically what we would be surveying our math teachers. And let me just make a point about survey. That's a loose use of the term survey. We don't intend this to be a survey, a traditional form of a survey. We are using the DPI survey and evaluating that for what we can learn from that, but we also feel the need to have additional feedback from our math teachers, and that's what this will accomplish, is to provide a template to get that feedback. We also want to collect additional feedback from our teachers and parents, and Lori McCall will take us through this template that she's created for us to review that and give input to that and agree to that. Then we'll have a discussion around how those templates will be distributed and collected, and then we'll have a finalized with the teacher and parent committee on next steps, which is our intention to have both teachers and parents be more integrally involved in the process going forward. We've made that early on a priority for us as we got ourselves down the road. We think we're at the point now as we start to look specifically into the standards that we want that to be, those to be informed, those discussions to be informed by our teachers and our parents. And then we'll adjourn after that. Any questions, concerns about the agenda? Yes.
I have a question, thank you. I am wondering if this item, this is kind of a matrix for reviewing state level standards. I wonder if that is assumed to be embedded somewhere in old business. It is a tool that was posted to our website.
That is what, I'm sorry, that's item number E, letter E here.
are you talking about a calendar? Or
No, I'm talking about a matrix for reviewing. It's the matrix that I
Yes,
shared with.
and that goes along with the process. Those two documents go together.
Thanks.
So he just, Andre just failed to mention that. Dr. Oxendine had also drafted a matrix, and it basically will serve to guide the revisions work. We wanted to, I sent both of those out. Did everyone receive those? Before we get started, Andre, I would like to update just a couple of things. The math and ELA raw data, we received that information. Was everyone able to download that information? I think I had one, it was math 7th grade. I was having trouble downloading, so maybe we can have that resent, because I was having difficulty getting that to pull up. And also our funding bill. Do we have any legislators in the room at the moment who might be able to update us on where we are with that? The last I heard, I believe it's Senate Bill 14, is in the Senate at the moment for concurrence. It's to resolve some differences in the language. Unfortunately, our bill, or the bill that funds the Academic Standards Review Commission, is tied to a coal ash bill. And there's quite a bit of consternation about how that language is going to flush out. So I think that's what's holding up our funding bill at this point. Don't anticipate there to be any issues with that bill. It's just the nature of the beast. So hopefully it will be sooner rather than later.
And the good news, though, here is, as it relates to our funding, is that we were concerned about that early on, but it hasn't held up our ability to bring in expert speakers to come talk to us. And I'm very pleased today to have 3 subject matter experts come talk to the commission about their experience in standards and getting standards drafted, making sure those standards are high, making sure that they're international, making sure that they're clear and coherent, all the things that we're concerned about as it relates to North Carolina standards, and all the things that the Senate bill charges us to review and make recommendations against. Tammy, if I could turn to you and have you introduce the speakers, would that be?
Sure. Actually, I will introduce Dr. Stotsky at the moment, and 21st Century Chair in Teacher Quality. She served as Senior Associate Commissioner at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education from 1999 to 2003, where she was in charge of developing or revising all the state's K-12 standards, teacher licensure tests, and teacher administrator licensure regulations. She served on the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education from 2006 to 2010, on the National Mathematics Advisory Panel from 2006 to 2008, and on the Common Core Validation Committee from 2009 to 2010. She was one of the 5 members of the Validation Committee, I don't think I have to say this, who would not sign off on the standards as being rigorous, internationally benchmarked, comparable or competitive, or research-based. She was also editor of the premier research journal, Research in the Teaching of English, published by the National Council of Teachers of English from 1991 to 97. She has published extensively in professional journals and written several books. So please help me welcome Dr. Stotsky.
Is this close enough to be picked up?
It is.
It is, okay. It seems awfully far away from where I'm sitting, so I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
All right, let me pull up Dr. Milgram's bio.
I'm sorry, was there something else?
No.
Oh, all right.
We're just introducing her.
Let me read through Dr. Kirk's bio while you do that, just to save some time. So Dr. Kirk, if you can just raise your hand so that people know who you are. He's a senior program and research association with WestEd Learning and Innovations. WestEd is a research development and service agency that works with education and other communities to promote excellence, achieve equity, and improve learning for children, youth, and adults. Dr. Perks works with schools, districts, state, and federal agencies to improve their capacity to support learning outcomes for students and educators. Perks' areas of expertise include literacy, motivation, and standards-based teaching and learning. He has written numerous articles on curriculum, instruction, and a recent book on motivation and engagement in support of student achievement. Dr. Perks, we're pleased to have you here today. One of the things that you may recall are 3 work streams, which are simplifying the standards, enabling teacher and LEA flexibility, and also making sure age appropriateness is addressed within the standards. A common theme we've had is are these standards able to be executed and able to deliver the results? And our expectation in the discussion with Dr. Perks today is he's going to address seeing standards, whether they're Common Core related standards or otherwise, be able to move into execution, and what are the kinds of things that need to be in place in order for those to be successful. Thank you again, Dr. Perks, for joining us.
Okay, Dr. Milgram, Dr. James Milgram was a member of the Common Core Validation Committee as well from 2009 to 2010. He is currently a professor of mathematics emeritus at Stanford University. Dr. Milgram received both his BS and MS from the University of Chicago and his PhD from the University of Minnesota. Dr. Milgram has served on a number of boards and committees, including the NASA Advisory Council and National Board of Education Sciences. I'm sure that's not all, but that's all I have. So, Dr. Milgram, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tammy. No problem. So on our agenda, like I said, our first topic up, we're going to launch very quickly into our expert speakers, and again followed by a panel. But before we do that, the last time we met, we had an interesting dialogue toward the end as it relates to our path forward. And I wanted to take a moment just to read through our charge as a commission, just to refresh our mind on what we're trying to get done as we listen today, not only to the presentations, but also as we contemplate the work to be done next. Now, you've had a chance to look back through the bill on yourself, but just again for the people listening in as well. There are really 4 things that this commission is charged to do. One is to conduct a comprehensive review of the English language arts and mathematics standards that were adopted by the State Board of Education. So we're in the process of reviewing. Second is that as soon as practicable upon convening and at any time prior to termination, we are to recommend changes and modifications to these academic standards to the State Board of Education. The third element of our charge is to recommend to the State Board of Education assessments aligned to the proposed changes and modifications that would also reduce the number of high-stakes assessments administered to the public schools. And then fourth, we are to consider the impact of on educators, including the need for professional development when making any of the recommendations required in these actions. Today, we have content experts. The last thing that the bill calls for is for the commission shall assemble content experts to assist it in evaluating the rigor of academic standards. The commission shall also involve interested stakeholders in this process and otherwise ensure that the process is transparent. And we have a fair gathering of folks observing today in the spirit of transparency, both in the room and on the live stream. So I wanted to make sure we refresh ourselves on this charge to demonstrate that we're consistent with what the charge is supposed to do, to have us do for our stakeholders and our citizenry, and it also that we maintain our focus on that as we proceed forward. Okay? So, any points of question or points of clarification or points of order before we proceed into our first speaker topic today? Okay. So with that, then, I believe, Dr. Stopsky, we're going to have you speak first, and again, to refresh the commission on the order of the presentation will be Dr. Stopsky, followed by Dr. Milgram, followed by Dr. Perks. They're going to spend about 30 minutes on each taking us through their perspective on what we should be doing to move forward and address the issues that we have here in North Carolina. And then once they conclude with that, then we're going to have the ability to spend probably the next hour to hour and a half speaking to them as a group and interacting with them to further elaborate, to get them to further elaborate on their points and for us to also share our perspectives and what we need